Okay, we retreat from the day's bad news. Seems to be bad news all the time with American public education. And again, Mom and Dad, I just am going to introduce Instant Classic by reminding you of the show today and how they're laughing in your face. They're now saying that our job is to lie to you if you find out what we're doing in the classroom. So that if you think you know what you're doing, lie, cheat, only send home certain things. We do Instant Classic as a way to try to remind you what education used to be like when the purpose of teaching was educating kids in basic literacy. It wasn't about left-wing theory. It wasn't about indoctrinating children. One of the great writers of Western culture, probably one that you have not read and don't know much about, is Nikolai Gogol, the great mid-19th century Russian novelist whose work was so pivotal, even though you might not have heard of it, it gave rise to the great Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky himself looked back at Gogol and realized how much this writer, obscure to the American audience, how much he transformed the writing of Russia. And so in this particular quote from Nikolai Gogol, who was kind of a writer of fantasy literature in many respects. He wrote very bizarre stories. He wrote a story called The Dream of a Crazy Man, basically is the Russian a diary of a madman, a madman's diary, which shows you over the course of a year's worth of entries how the mind begins to slip. I mentioned yesterday, Gogol has a story about a nose, N-O-S-E, that jumps off somebody's face and starts living the high life all around Petersburg. Very fun and fantastical are the premises, but the morals to the story are shocking and very, very well taken. Take this quote from Nikolai Gogol. "But nothing is lasting in this world. Even joy begins to fade after only a minute. 2 minutes later, and it is weaker still, until finally it is swallowed up in our everyday prosaic state of mind, just as a ripple made by a pebble gradually merges with the smooth surface of the water." That's a beautiful observation, and then he makes it in the context of a bigger point. That there is nothing in this world, not even human joy, that makes us happy forever or for very long. We are the only animals, quote unquote, who ever lived that are not satisfied simply being animals. God made us so that there's nothing in this world that can ever make us truly happy. There's always going to be that hole. Even joy is not enough. It doesn't last long enough. The only reason God made us that way is if God made us to be completely happy here, we would never turn to Him about the next world. And so, by definition, this world wasn't our home. It was never meant to be our home. And people who live as if this were all things, like modern progressives and socialists do, they have nothing. They can imagine nothing better than this ship of fools we call reality.